And welcome back to Prep Recruiting Inside of PRI. I'm your host, Rick Gailey, along with Renee Nato, the E, the I in PRI. Wow. And we are so happy today to be joined by someone who I had a chance to coach and see him grow up in the game, Coach Jay Roth of the Archbishop Rummel Raiders. Jay, thank you for being here with us today. I know it's exam week and you're trying to get practice in, and I appreciate you taking the time to come with us.
Well, Coach Gailey, we enjoyed doing it last year, and I wouldn't miss it this year.
Thank you, Jay. You've had every week as a challenge to you, Jay, and you took your team, Wayne County, and went to John Bosco last week. What did those two road trips tell you about your team?
Well, you've heard so much about these programs in Wayne County, and especially in Don Bosco, because you've read about them over the years, and it's just a chance for us to compete at another level out of state and see how we stack up to it. And I thought this might have been the team that could compete, in which we did. We finished 1-1 after 2 games, and I was proud of the effort, and I was proud of us going out of state. And I think mostly I was just proud of the way the boys behaved and getting the compliments on them. That made me feel great, you know, taking 80 people on a road trip and bringing 80 people back.
well, you and I took a road trip a long time ago, along with David Lasciuto, up to the University of Delaware. And we flew into Philadelphia, drove down to Delaware, and then back to Philadelphia, taking you and Lasciuto around Philadelphia to Independence Hall.
I remember that trip, Coach.
Yeah, that was hard enough with 2 guys,
yeah.
much less 80. But this week, you have Holy Cross. We had Coach Eric Robato on the show earlier this year. And last week you had Shaw, Archbishop Shaw, and the game for the megaphone. And it's going to be worth noting, for information purposes only, that Coach Roth has 199 victories in his 21 years. And here's a list of the active winningest coaches, with J.T. Curtis, also a Catholic League coach, and Jay on that list as well at 199. Let's talk about the 199th, more than the 200. The megaphone game last week with the Shaw Eagles. Talk about the significance, because traditions and rivalries are so much of the sport of football. Talk about the megaphone.
Coach, I'm going to tell you, for years, that Shaw Rummel game was for the district championship, for many, many years. And at times, other teams have dominated. I mean, there were times, there was 15 straight years Shaw won the megaphone. And I told my players that the megaphone has brought many have grown men to tears, either receiving it or giving it back. And many great players in prep history have handled the megaphone. And this was our 5th consecutive year, our 4th consecutive year winning it. But one thing you never want to do is you never want to give it back, especially as a captain. And I tell my captains, the worst thing you could do is give that thing back to the West Bank, because you don't know when you're going to get it back again. So even though we've won it the last 4 years, it was still very exciting to have it back. And Scott's a good friend of mine. He's a Shaw graduate, and I coached at Shaw, so I know the significance of that megaphone from both sides of it.
Jay, you've been in the game a long time, 21 years coaching, and you're assistant coach too, and as a player. And this recruiting process has really kind of evolved. It's changed a little bit in the last 5, 10, 15 years. How has it changed, and how active do you try to stay in that recruiting process from the individual standpoint?
Well, the change is mostly I'm not active in it anymore, because there's so many people out there that are recruiting services, not only coaches, but services and scouts, rivals, all these recruiting services. So, I mean, I still appreciate seeing the college coaches, but a lot of times, once they get that initial permission through me to talk or mail stuff to the kids, they deal with the kids individually. You know, I'm there for the kids if they have any questions, or if they want any advice, but I'm not going to tell a young man where to go. I'm not going to push one school over the other. You know, my only advice to them, and I'll tell this to all the kids, is that you go to a state school, you make a name for yourself, and you have a great career after. You know, if you go to a school in the state of Louisiana and you have a successful career, or you graduate, you get that big bowl ring, a national championship ring on your hand, it opens up doors. If you want to leave the state, just think about staying there, you know, and make a name for yourself there. That's about the only advice I give them. I want them to be happy. I don't want a kid to come back and say, you told me to go here, right, and then they're not happy. I don't want that to happen.
And it seems that the tricky part now is keeping people away from the players, or keeping them out of the process who don't need to be in the process. There's so many street agent type players and people that promote themselves as gurus of recruiting, that they could do things that their high school coach can't do, when all of that is nonsense. That can be very difficult, can it?
It is, and parents listen and players listen to that. And the final word comes from high school coach, especially when it's established. You know, the college coaches are going to trust you and what you say. But so many people think they can help get a kid recruited. But then again, when you pay somebody money, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. You know, just like I was telling Bill Bumgarner this morning today, we were talking, and after a game, it used to be the newspaper people talking to the players and the coach. Now they got more people talking to players and coaches after the game with iPhones and from different services. It's something to see.
Jay, you've become, in a very, very competitive district, the hunted. You know, people, when they play Rummel now, that's a big game for them. What is the personality of this team, and how tough is it sometimes you want to win every game, but sometimes when you are the one that everyone wants to beat, it plays with the player's mind a little bit.
Well, just for example, this week, Holy Cross is 4-1. They're 2-0 in district. They haven't beaten us for quite a few years now. This is big. This is big. This is the biggest game for them up to this point. One, they'll be 3-0 in district if Holy Cross wins. The winner is undefeated. And so we got to tell our kids every week is a big game. And, you know, we were district champions last year, so of course everybody wants to have a shot at you. I'd rather everybody want to have a shot at us and nobody really care about us. We just be everybody's homecoming game, you know. I'd rather people, you know, want to get up for us. And I got to remind my kids every week that people look forward to playing Roma and they want to beat you.
And this year, I believe, the Catholic League, or the Catholic Christian League, as it's becoming, with Curtis now in it, is really getting back to what it was competitive-wise pre-Katrina, where every week was a war. It's been building to this, but certainly I like to say that the Catholic League this year is the Catholic League that we knew.
Coach, is fabulous. I mean, it wears on you because every week you need to prepare and you can get beat. There's nobody you can overlook. But I'm going to tell you, I'm so proud of all the teams in the league. I mean, there's a chance that the winner of this league might have a loss or two. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we might just beat the heck out of each other for the next 5 weeks and then turn around and do it again all over again. Yeah. But it's nice to know that every game you play, you have to really prepare for it, and every game you play, your stomach is churning. You know, I couldn't imagine going into games and not being nervous about them.
You know, Jay, you got Holy Cross coming up, and you know, 2 state championships, and you've set the bar very, very high. That is tough. But the thing is that you have tremendous support. Rummel, the Rummel family, and everything. You talk about traveling on the road. Everywhere you go, there's a lot of support there for you.
Well, the kids love it because the alumni come back, and the football alums come back. Last week, the class of 1966, the first senior graduating class of Rummel that played football, the 65 football team, came back, 20 of them, and addressed the football team before the game. Now, you talk about neat. And those boys' eyes were this big, and they even presented me with a leather helmet from the 1965 team. And when we went to Jersey, we had two men from the 74-75 team that came. Greg Schaff and Tommy Benj came with us. And the kids want to know the history of Rummel. Our kids are into the history. They respect the tradition laid down by the older guys, and the support is great, along with the student support, the community support, and band and chaperettes and cheerleaders. It really is neat.
Well, that's Coach Jay Roth, who'll be back for another segment on the other side of this timeout. And here's some Rummel history. Jay Roth was the quarterback of the first undefeated team in Rummel history in 1980. Doesn't seem like that long ago. We will be right back after this timeout. More Coach Roth, more Rummel Raiders here at NOLA Motorsports Park in Avondale.